Hi Nishit.
Hi Rashmi. Starting with the third week, I started getting one order.
Like, what was a differentiator even when it comes to coffee?
And third is that you keep the cherry entirely under the sun. And if you just let it be in open air, then it is going to get oxidized and it is going to rot. 70% is hard dark roasted coffee.
Is this similar kind of a consumer trend across other countries also, or is it just India who is not aware about the roasting spectrum?
Somewhere we associate bitterness with healthy also. India में 80-90% robusta grow होता है.
I am so happy that you busted that bubble for me, because otherwise I would have been clueless.
Yeah.
I think you...
Typically, Swiggy and Zomato have their own limit. The biggest challenge is the real estate space. Every single day, you have to stay committed to that standards that you have set. Tie up other engaging experiences which can come along really cool with coffee.
Hi Nishit.
Hi Rashmi.
Welcome to the Cool Couch.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting to the podcast.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just quickly start with a brief introduction of you and what has been your journey, etc. So can you walk us through that?
Sure. So my name is Nishit. I presently run the company called the Puck Story right now. We are into gourmet coffee, and soon we are trying to pivot into trying to include gourmet ice creams as well. So I'll start with my journey. I started my journey, professional journey 14 years back with consumer durables as an industry, and got a great opportunity to work with brands like LG, Panasonic and Apple. With Apple, I was working in Mumbai, where I got a true understanding about how retail works, what is the power of brand actually, how do you leverage the power of a brand, and that got me thinking that if you are focused and if you have a vision towards something and if you use your creativity pretty well, you can build a sizable leverage, and leverage is what businesses are all about. So that was my first 8 years where I got conditioned about how systems work, how markets function, how brands are leveraged, so on and so forth. And for the last 6 years, I have been working around startups. Worked with 3 startups in fact before starting the Puck Story. I was working started with fintech space, then again pivoted to edutech space, and then the last company that I was working with was in the health tech space primarily. To be specific, if I have to say, it was in the oral care space. So the name of the company was Tootsie.
Tootsie. Okay.
So it was similar to Tootsie. The name of the company is Desi now. Earlier it was called as Smiles.ai.
Okay.
So there are only 2 companies in India who are primarily targeting this problem. There is Invisalign and there are other companies also.
Okay.
But in the startup ecosystem which are funded and which is got a proper brand play, Tootsie is one of them and Smiles.ai is another. So I was one of the core team members at Smiles.ai.
Okay.
And I was taking care of sales and expansion over there. So that's been my journey before the Puck Story.
That's your first startup, right? The Puck Story.
The Puck Story is the present startup.
Yeah. So this is your first ever startup.
Yeah, this is the first ever startup that I have started as in my own individual capacity. Before that, I was working as a team member, co-team member, GTM leader. So that was that.
Okay, so what prompted you to start your own thing?
Yeah, so I always had this inclination of starting something of my own, manifesting my ideas, being scrappy. Like I had an artistic bent of mind, so I always had this thing that I create something of my own and bring it to life where like-minded people can appreciate. And business just becomes an end. It doesn't become like a means to something. It is just a likable outcome that comes along with the idea that I am manifesting on the canvas. So that was the broad idea that I had. And my 6 years with the startups, that kind of had a rub-off effect on that itch of starting something of my own, of being scrappy or manifesting my ideas. And that is when I thought that whatever I had to learn, whatever I had to absorb, I had already absorbed in the corporate ecosystem and the startup ecosystem. Then I felt that I should be leaving and I should be starting something of my own, like whatever I have in my head, whether it's related to art, whether it is related to manifesting my own ideas, anything. So that's when I left my job around in 2023.
Okay,
and
fairly recent.
It was recent, and that is when I started looking around for ideas about, and it was primarily not about building business, not about creating sizable moats or raising funding. It was primarily about getting into a space where you can productize yourself, you can just create something which is artistic and which is true to yourself, and you resonate with people, and business is just a likable outcome that comes on its way. It is not by design. So that was the earlier idea that I thought about.
Okay.
And I was exploring a lot of ideas now within
What
Bangalore.
have you explored?
So I was thinking of medicines, Ayurvedic medicines. That was one field that I was exploring. I went quite deep on sustainable packaging also. So I felt that it was making a business sense because the consumption is kind of infinite, especially because of the at-home deliveries that we receive via Swiggy, Zomato, Amazon, etc. So the consumption is always going to increase. So I wanted to get into the sustainable angle of that and get into that. But the moment I went deep into it, I always felt that it made a great business sense, but it did not have a creative artsy angle to that, and I was not at all enjoying that work. I put in about 2 months to 3 months looking out for markets, researching about products, etc. But I felt that it is way too commoditized and it is too transactional. That was not my original goal to get into business side of things. I always wanted to be on the artsy art side, customer experience side, and I have a background. So especially with Apple, it was more about creating that experiential magic in the store, offline store. So that was the broad direction that I wanted to get into. So sustainable packaging did not have that thing. Medicine or healthcare, it was great in terms of business, but again did not have that artsy, vibey kind of a feel.
That's true.
So luckily, there was a huge conference that was being organized in Bangalore. It was the World Coffee Congress.
Does this happen every year?
This happens every 2 years, and that does not happen only in India. It happens across the world.
Okay.
And luckily, when I was starting up, that was the chance of India to host this event, and it was the first time that India was hosting it. And people from across the globe had come, the global who's who of like the Starbucks head and the other key coffee stakeholders. They had come in India to participate, and it was a broad canvas to collab precisely around coffee. So that was the kind of an event that I got a chance to attend, and that's when I got to understand the magnitude of coffee. That again rubbed off on me, and it was very difficult to not start after that. So that's when I felt that I should be doing something around coffee, and coffee has that vibey romantic feel that that unites people and that kind of helps them disconnect and at times think beyond rationality also. So that's what I wanted to do, and then I started a cloud kitchen from my home. And earlier it was like I was just serving in plain Caventer's bottle that I would be getting, and I would be creating a basic sticker. And so earlier I did not start with cloud kitchen also. I just started it at my kitchen, and I put a normal message within my society that I have started this thing, and we have about 3 to 4 different varieties of coffee, and if you are really a fan of coffee, then I would be coming and delivering at your doorstep. So that was another ball game altogether. In the initial phase, I felt that there would not be even a single person who would be joining this group because we constantly get spammed, and there's so much of clutter in everybody's head.
True.
Nobody likes to be a part of a random group, just to say. But suddenly, like within 3 days or 4 days, there were about 35 people who joined, and I said that I would be delivering coffee only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Whosoever wants to order, they can DM me and I'll deliver it directly at somebody's home. And like in the first week I did not get any order. In the second week also I did not get any order. I just felt that I am just speaking to a wall and I should not be expecting any response from anyone. But then starting with the third week, I started getting one order, and that person was kind enough said that you can deliver the coffee at my home. I'm at my home, and just give your coffee to me.
Was this originating from the society WhatsApp group?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Not even WhatsApp groups. It was the first group that I initiated and started. I posted it on Apna Complex, and I said that this is the link if you are enthusiastic about coffee, and if you like to discuss about coffee also, you can just join our group. I would just privately DMing them and say that you can keep the group on mute if you are getting too disturbed. But I would be just spamming on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you are enthused about coffee, just join our group. We would be serving some coffee, have it and share some feedback. So that was the starting point of it. And luckily then when I was going to multiple events, there was a startup community called Antler. So I also so I also joined that. There is a community called Day Before Zero community. So I joined that. They keep having their meetups. So there, one of the meetups was there in Cubbon Park.
Okay.
So I and my wife prepared coffee without knowing whether people would be liking us to have coffee or not. We just took a risk. We said that how many people are coming, must be about 18-20 people who would be joining, and we prepared about good 20 to 25 bottles of coffee, and I took it and I went to Cubbon Park, and there was a nice little meeting, and I, towards the end of the meeting, I just served everyone the coffee. So everyone loved it a lot, and the host of that meetup, she was kind enough to kind of post pictures in the group about the coffee, etc. And from there I got an interest from another co-founder of mine, who again got interested about drinks and consumer brands and beverages.
Well.
So earlier he was there, now he has left. He was more interested in his AI startup. He had his thing running, and just out of curiosity he joined me and he helped me with a lot of things. Now he is not there.
Okay. So what makes your coffee, like how did you reach a point thinking that, oh, you know what, this is something in the coffee sector people are not serving and I'll go and serve it?
Yeah.
Like what was your differentiator even when it comes to coffee?
So after getting into coffee, I always realized that whenever I used to go in restaurants, cafes, I always happened to order cold beverages. I I always like to order something cold. I never like to order something which is hot. So first thing first, I always wanted to get into the colder side of coffee rather than getting into the hotter side of coffee.
Got it.
Second, it was about, I always liked my coffee creamy. So I always wanted to give my helper or someone who is serving me coffee, I would always give them an extra nudge that, you know, please make my coffee a bit on a creamier side. So creamy, velvety, smooth, that's the kind of a coffee that I personally prefer.
Okay.
And after getting into with the Puck story, I started observing things, whether this kind of a trend is around across the tables or it is only with me.
Okay.
And then
like the cold and the creamier part.
Cold and the creamier part, and a bit sweet. That was also the case. So that's when I started observing 10 feedback, 12 feedback, and I told you I started my group in the society itself. So there also I was serving the kind of a coffee which I personally would be liking.
Okay.
I did not go about surveying what they would be liking. And then when I started serving preferably creamier coffees, a bit on a sweeter side, then people really started appreciating that. So I got a validation there that, you know, what I was thinking, the hunch that I had, that was right. Then second part was I started getting deep into it. So I understood that, you know, people are also health conscious these days. When we talk about creamier things, when we talk about sugar loaded, then people do not really like. So I used to get a lot of feedback that, you know, your coffee is on a sweeter side and it is a bit on a creamier side. Is it healthy? It is not healthy, so on and so forth. So we started experimenting with less sweeter coffees that, you know, make it creamy but keep it less sweet. But then people never used to like that. They used to say that no, this is not tasting that great, etc. So that's when we got another layer, another handle onto the fact that people like to say that they are following healthy habits, but when it comes to food, they are emotional, and that is where taste overcharges everything. Taste, it is a taste first preference for all of the consumers. So whenever they are having anything, it would be first about taste, and then they would be saying whether it is healthy or not. So that was an additional insight that we got, that, you know, people like to say that they are following healthy habits, but when it comes to taste, if it's a 11 on 10 on taste, then they would kind of negotiate with the health aspect of it, and they would say that, okay, I would be having a cheat day within a week, or I would be having a two or three cheat days in a month. And that's the kind of a window that we got, that we know that this is the space that we want to operate in. We want to get into that desert space where we want to approach the taste first customers and also offer them decently healthy options. We are not saying that we do not have healthier options. We have healthier options as well, and we have taste first options as well. Both are equally tasty. The healthier one would be slightly less tasty because it is slightly less on cream, slightly less on sugar.
Okay.
And when we got to know about this, that's when we started exploring the ideas around cold brews, because cold brews come without any cream. It is only and only water. It is like a coffee coffee flavored water, so to say,
Yeah.
plainly speaking. So one day what I did was I took a coconut pod, the normal coconut toddy water. So I extracted the toddy water out of it, mixed cold brew coffee grounds with that toddy water, and then I poured the toddy water again in that in the coconut pod, and I stored it for a good 12 hours to 14 hours. And then I extracted it and I drunk it. I am also into fasting, etc., intermittent fasting, marathon running, etc. And on that day I was fasting, and when I had that coffee, I was just blown away by the kind of a kick that I got, the kind of an energy that I got, and the kind of a sustained energy which lasted for about 3 hours, good 3 to 4 hours. Because coconut comes with a lot of magnesium, with a lot of micronutrients, and coffee comes with its own kick. So both of it combined, it kept me sated for a good 3 to 4 hours. So that is when I realized that cold brew is a nice sweet spot between that experimental experiential coffee, which is healthy, which you can keep it as less sweet, and yet it can serve the taste palace of a lot of people. So that is how we came into the cold brew stuff. And then we began experimenting with a lot of cold brew drinks. We started mixing flavors, like usually our flavors are around fruits. So we have orange, we have lemon, we have kokum. So we started Indianizing the cold brew, because usually I would be very honest in saying that black coffee, it tastes a bit on a bitter side, and it has sharp edges. So personally I never liked black coffee, so to say. But when black coffee was experimented with something which is sour, which has some kind of a sweetness, which has a fizz, that's when I started liking black coffee a lot, because it gave it an angle of a mocktail. It gave it an angle of a cocktail.
I think that also is a USP to some degree.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have had cold brews with, let's say, orange, freshly squeezed orange.
Squeezed orange.
And that too not in India generally.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they serve it in third wave, but mostly a couple of times outside India only. But when we saw this coffee, I think a couple of days back only. So you have, I didn't try this one. I did try a cold brew mixed with some, I think one was with Pepsi or something, that kind of flavor it had. So now that you had these two categories, which one do you think is doing well in comparison to the other?
Yeah. So it's a mix between both. Depends on what journey you are at with coffee. So as you mentioned just before the podcast, you mentioned that you are a good chai drinker. If given a preference between coffee and chai, you are always a chai lover. So someone who is pivoting new into coffee, creamy cold coffee is the first thing that they try, and typically it is the classic cold coffee that they typically try to have some similarity, some semblance between tea and coffee.
Do you think it is largely also driven because it's having a good taste? It's sugar, it's milk, slight bit of coffee. So because of that, that's where the acquired journey or the acquired taste journey begins for a person who is not actively a coffee drinker.
Absolutely, you are bang on. Us Indians, we are more of like sweet eaters. We like things creamy, we like it sweet, and you can see that in our occasions as well. All our occasions are loaded with sweets. If sweets are not there, our occasions are incomplete, which is not that much the case in the Western countries. First of all, they have very less occasions, so to say, and in majority of the occasions they would be having non-vegetarian food, they would be having steaks, they would be having turkey, they would be having pork, so on and so forth. So it's not that they do not like sweets as much, but along with sweets they have a lot of different varieties as well, which includes a lot of meat, which includes a lot of other savories which are on the different side of the taste palette. But for us Indians, sweet is something which is a primary, which is non-negotiable. Like मिठाई के बिना कोई occasion खत्म भी कैसे हो सकता है? So I personally think, this is my first principles thinking, that Indians typically have a liking towards something which is sweet, something which is creamy. The first thing, अगर आप चाय पीते हो और आप मतलब you are at a later stage where you are not that open to change your habits. Let's suppose if you are 30 or 35, where for the past 15 years, 17 years you have been going on about drinking tea. I would introduce coffee to you via the classic cold coffee.
Yeah.
That is creamy, milk, sugar heavy, थोड़ा सा coffee है, थोड़ा सा vanilla है उसमें, तो it will slip into your daily habit.
Yeah.
If you are a youngster, if you are somewhere between 18 or 30 and आप open हो, आपने मतलब recently चाय पीना चालू करा है, habit लगी है, लेकिन साथ में आप conscious भी हो कि यार healthy होना चाहिए, gym जाना चाहिए, mindful होना चाहिए, coffee है जो आपको kick देती है, etc. Then I would offer you a cold brew, because cold brew has a health angle to it. I don't know if you follow Andrew Huberman. I'm a big Andrew Huberman fan. So Andrew Huberman is a big proponent of coffee if you take it in the right amount and if you take it in the right way.
So in what category or what are the key differentiators between chai being unhealthy and a cold brew being healthy?
It's debatable. It is both of them can be healthy, both of them can be unhealthy. It's just that coffee has a lot of data points which is documented. For example, coffee is said to be having some metabolistic benefits. It enhances the rate of metabolism in your body. So let's say if you want to cut fat, if you want to restore your muscles, if you want to get quick energy, coffee is the thing which serves best.
Okay.
A lot of research has also come out stating that coffee has anti-cancerous properties as well. Okay. So if someone is having coffee regularly and daily, their chances of suffering with cancer reduces by about 45%, 44 to 45%.
Is it?
But that is like you have a healthy dose of coffee and every day and for a very long period of time,
what
15 years to 20 years. You have coffee before 6 p.m. Every day,
one.
And you don't have coffee more than 2 cups in a day. 2 is the maximum. 2 to 2.5 is the maximum.
Okay, and are we talking about cold brew here or like espresso or?
Typically the black coffee.
Black coffee,
I would say
okay.
The ones which is very strong, which is loaded with caffeine. Cold brew is 2x more loaded with caffeine.
Okay.
As compared to a regular coffee. So even if you are having a cold brew, you have before 6 p.m, you have it twice in a day, and you typically have after you have had a intense workout or post meal. If you have it, then probably it is not going to harm. The good side of coffee is going to overcome bad traits of coffee. Now what are the bad traits of coffee? The bad traits of coffee is that if you drink coffee, then the caffeine kind of spikes your energy levels pretty fast, and then there are energy crashes as well. So such sharp energy spikes and crashes, it is not great for your body.
Energy crashes means what? I understand energy hikers, even I have experienced it, but is energy crasher also happening?
So let's suppose if you are having coffee quite regularly for 2 months, 3 months, you are having coffee every day, and suddenly for 3 days you are not getting your coffee. Then you might be starting to feel groggy, and you might be starting to feel lethargic, or you might be feeling that you need an external energy boost to keep your energy levels up.
Okay.
So if you are that accustomed to coffee, then probably the energy crash part comes into quite actively.
And how easily is it for people to get accustomed to coffee? Let's say I don't drink coffee at all.
Okay.
Sometimes I will go to some cafe or something and then I'll drink it. Even if I'm drinking it, I'll drink cold brew because that's what I like to some degree. I don't like coffee with milk. That's not. But for me, it looks like, for me it has become that I probably will not become a coffee drinker because I'm so much into having this early consumption of chai. And there are but for usually what kind of behavior have we seen in general as to people getting super accustomed to coffee, then as you said that the energy crashes can also happen. But can you tell me that if a non-coffee drinker, how long the journey is going to look like for that particular person to be a habitual coffee drinker in whatever form?
So I don't think that coffee is going to replace chai ever. It is going to be an and. So the chai drinkers are going to have their chai in the morning, since they are accustomed to having chai almost every day. They would be having chai as a morning beverage. But when they are going out on a date, or when they are just going to meet someone for a number crunching kind of a thing, or when they are having a semi-casual meeting with their boss or with their colleague, then they would be meeting over coffee. Or when they are going out to explore a new place where they just want to sit and relax and have this vibey feel, then they would prefer coffee as opposed to chai.
Yeah.
So I think both of them would be existing.
But
Both
yeah.
of them would be coexisting. Coming to your question and my previous point also, that how do people get accustomed to coffee? Let's suppose if someone is a heavy chai drinker,
Yeah.
how does someone get introduced to coffee? So again, I have this unique habit. I would not say unique, but I have learned that typically for coffee and in India, if a customer or if someone is between the age of 18 and 30, he has seen the phase of lockdown and he has gotten more aware about health, and he has gotten more aware about being actively conscious about health and energy management, etc., then he would be more open to trying cold brew.
Okay.
So cold brew is the introduction point for someone who is health conscious, and age wise he's somewhere between 18 to 30. Now where does the factor of age come in the place? Between 18 and 30 you are not that accustomed to a particular thing. It's not that you need chai every day in the morning. If I do not give you chai, then you would be having energy crashes or you would not be feeling right. So it is easy. This TG is open to trying new things.
Okay.
And coffee serves that newness pretty well. Us Indians, we are primarily chai lovers, we are chai drinkers. But when it comes to trying something new, when it comes to trying something which has a varietal aspect of it, then coffee fits the bill pretty well. You would want to drink something which gives you energy. You would want to drink something which is new. You would want to try something which signals that you are cool, you are trying something which is rare. So between coffee and chai, coffee is rarer. That's a fact.
Largely also because we had a very different kind of a beverage preference, because we are a primarily chai drinking country. Of course, coffee is there, but I'm sure that the proportion of chai would be a little bit more higher than
it was always high, and it is always going to be high. I would also tell you an interesting story about a correlation between countries' overall GDP per capita income versus coffee consumption. So if you overlay the data of South Korea, China, UK, Japan, all of these countries were primarily chai drinkers because of them having a South Asian roots, and typically the climate that they have, the climate typically supports growing tea. So as a morning beverage, all of these countries for a good 75 years, it was about having tea.
Okay.
But over the last 20 years, 25 years, when their GDP, their per capita income skyrocketed because of technological evolution, because of the overall development, when they had increased disposable income, these countries started consuming coffee as well. Now I'm saying consuming coffee as well. I'm not saying that they replaced tea with coffee. Tea was there as a morning beverage. It was a kind of a morning routine. Coffee also came into a place which served a purpose of evening snacks, or it served a purpose of after meal dessert.
Okay, that way. I never heard about this after meal dessert.
Yeah. Or for that matter, experimenting with a lot of drinks. So for example, these are the ones, this TG were the ones who were quite conscious about their health. So they did not want to drink a lot outside, but they wanted to drink something which was cool, which was healthy, and which gave them a equal good experience for drinking.
Okay.
So they complemented tea with coffee. And you look right now, the coffee culture in Korea, in Japan, in Indonesia, in China, in UK, I mean English folks were the first ones to introduce us to chai. But you go to UK, around 4 people or 6 people out of 10, you would find them to be a coffee drinker, heavy coffee drinker. And out of 6, about 2 or 3 people would be preferring coffee with an alt milk. So they are so buzzing with alt milk coffee. Either it is with oat milk, or it is with coconut milk, or it is with something else. So you get buzzing with alt milk once you have gone really deep in a particular beverage, and then you have created wide spectrum for yourselves that you know that I do not want coffee only with dairy milk, I want it with oat milk, or I want it with coconut milk.
Okay.
So despite of them having their true roots, true origins around chai, they also started consuming coffee in different occasions. For the past 7 years, for the past 8 years, the coffee consumption has taken over like anything in all those countries.
That's
Vietnam is another country. So Southeast Asia, China in specific, UK, Holland, Amsterdam, all of these countries earlier. I'm not sure about Holland and Amsterdam, but I'm sure about UK, China, Japan, South Korea. All of these were heavy tea drinkers, and then the coffee culture exploded there. And I'm not saying that the tea consumption degrew. The tea consumption was also steady, or it was growing at its own steady pace, but coffee's consumption was like a hockey stick.
Okay, got it.
So that's the kind of a boom that we are seeing today in India, because our disposable incomes are increasing, because the proportion of the crowd between 18 to 30 who has a larger share of disposable income, they have a larger capacity of spending on wants. They are the ones who are open to trying newer beverages, and coffee stands in first in their preference of trying newer beverages.
Okay, so maybe when it comes to, you said that we are sort of shifting, right?
Yeah.
Not shifting, as coffee is becoming like an
We are
and to,
yeah.
So let's say you started your startup around coffee
Yeah,
only,
yeah.
and but when it comes to consumer behavior, what kind of a changes have you noticed so far? Like, take us through some of the changes which are not easily available into market. Like, we know that between 18 to 30 is a kind of a TG which is very open to experimentation. But apart from that, throughout your journey, what were the key consumer behaviors which you have noticed so far? If you could tell us that.
Yeah. So apart from what I have already mentioned, I personally also feel that consumers are more design inclined. So whatever I said about coffee and caffeine and energy crashes or energy upkeep, etc. I personally feel that is the science aspect of it, and we are somehow trying to rationalize. Humans are kind of they like patterns and they like reasons behind everything. So this is the rational part of it. But there is also an irrational element to that, which is explained by the design element of it. So for example, I believe that if we are selling coffee, it is not only for the coffee quality and texture that people like to have our coffee. It is also because of the design. It is the design that they like to consume. It is the colors that they like to see. So like if you have a good amber, golden brown kind of a coffee, and if it is served in a can with a black kind of combination, so that color combination is something which attracts a lot of people, and they have it.
You mean packaging?
Yeah, packaging, and packaging includes the drink which is there inside the packaging.
Yeah.
So I would contradict myself in saying that I am a big time coffee proponent, but we also have matcha in our menu, and matcha is a tea.
Yeah.
And matcha right now, in the past 1.5 months to 2 months, it has been flying off our shelves.
Over the charts.
Yeah, it is over the charts. And it is not because of some kind of a FOMO or something. There are a lot of people who want to try matcha just because it is there a lot
for the sake of trying,
for the sake of trying
yeah.
it. But if you try raw matcha, it does not taste that great. I have heard a lot of people saying that
are we serving raw matcha? Or?
So we are serving matcha in combination with a lot of one-of-a-kind flavors.
Okay.
So for example, we are serving pancha. It is a combination of pan and matcha.
So we are like actually mixing,
yeah,
and we are basically Indianizing things, because
yeah,
if it is raw,
yeah,
we are not gonna like it.
Or organically, we are not going to like it. First time the hook is already there, organic hooks are there in social media, and somebody is definitely going to say that we have heard a lot about matcha, let's try it once. But a majority of them are not going to like raw matcha if I am going to serve matcha in its original form.
Okay.
So we need to Indianize it as per Indian context.
But I see it on social media that they are actually, making the organic matcha, if I'm not wrong, because I have not consumed matcha so far.
Okay.
But they are having this powder, and then they are doing some
they
2-3 steps to that, and then so is it an organic matcha they are doing, or
that is organic
that's
matcha,
organic
and
matcha.
It is also about the ritual. We were talking about the trends, what all other things.
Okay, the process of making.
The process of making a matcha. So that is a kind of a ritual. So that's another thing that has happened and caught up very fast after COVID. So COVID gave an opportunity to people to reflect on themselves and to understand that a lot of things that we are doing randomly, that should not be that random. There should be a way of doing everything. So sarcastically, somebody on LinkedIn posted the other day that these days the Gen Z and the millennials, they have a routine for everything. They have a breakfast routine, they have a morning routine, they have an evening routine, they have a sleep routine, they have an after meal routine. So there is a routine to everything. So routines as a behavior that has caught up really fast. So anything, any dish, any variety, if it is presented in the form of a routine, for example, a matcha, again, if you see, it's a green color, it's a bright green color. You take a proper Japanese bowl and you put some matcha in that, and you use only a wooden stick, which typically comes along with that matcha. You put that. You have a water. You pour that water. You have a whisker, which is again of a specific grade, specific kind. You put it in warm water for some time so that it gets soft, and then you whisk it, and then you pour that matcha on ice or on some coconut water or something, and then you serve it. So it is not as much about the drink, but it is about the color, it is about the ritual which it comes along with, which helps in packaging the entire lifestyle pretty well. And that's what is getting sold. It is not about the drink in itself.
Okay.
So again, coffee also comes with a lot of ritual of that sorts. You were mentioning about your friend Savya, who is also our like loyal customer. So he has got about 6 to 10 different equipments for coffee. So coffee has that ritual kind of a thing which you can follow pretty well. So for example, in a pour over, you have to have a water which is not boiling, which should be just under 100 degrees, and you should be having a coffee which is not we should not be very coarse ground, and we should not be very finely ground, and then you pour your water on top of the coffee, and then that cold brew or hot brew kind of drips onto the container. At times, like, there are a lot of coffee experts who kind of note that timing also, that drip should be for only about, let's say, 5 minutes or 7 minutes. That kind of shows that you are pouring the coffee slowly enough to kind of help the water absorb the flavor properly. So whatever I said, it is a kind of a ritual that is being followed. If you drink that coffee, I don't think the like average coffee drinkers would be able to tell you the difference. The heavy drinkers, the ones who drink coffee quite often, they are the only ones who would be able to tell the difference, that what is the difference between a slow drip and what is the difference between a normal drip.
Okay, that makes me wonder, what makes a good coffee, like what's the difference between a good coffee and a bad coffee?
Yeah, so there is no good coffee or bad coffee. It depends on the taste of the individual. But if you ask me about what are the variables which affects the taste of a coffee, then I would say there are 3 variables. I would say first is, how is the coffee being dried. So I'll just help you with the process of coffee making, coffee cherry making. So coffee is nothing but the seed of a fruit. So the fruit is the coffee cherry.
Okay.
That is that. The cherry is like during the early phases, it is green, light green in color. When it is completely ripe, it is red in color. And in India, typically, it's a very good thing. Actually, it is a globally recognized practice that the coffee cherries are plucked with hands. Otherwise, majority of the places, the coffee is plucked using machines. So in India, these coffee cherries are plucked with hands, and then the outer part of the fruit is depulped. So it is called depulping the coffee. So what you are left with is the seed and a sticky mucus like kind of a thing which is already there on the coffee cherry, on the coffee cherry beans actually. And then it is up to the grower if he wants to. So for example, there are 3 typically processes of washing the coffee. So let's suppose after washing the coffee, if you
remove the mucus.
Yeah, if you want to remove the mucus, then it is called washed. So which means that you put high pressure of water and you completely wash it, and you make the beans completely chikna, completely raw, and you dry it under the sun. If you say that you want it honey dried, so honey dried means that you let the mucus stay where it is, and you straight away you put it under the sun.
But why would I want a honey dried?
Because it brings in a layer of complexity in the taste.
Okay.
Like
mucus has a taste.
Yeah, mucus has a taste because it would be bringing in some natural sugar. It would be getting dried on the beans, and when you have it, you would be having a variety of flavor notes with the coffee itself. So for example, the cold brew coffee that we use, it's a honey dried cold brew. So the mucus is slightly left on the beans. It is dried under the sun. It has some floral, fruity, flavorful notes, and that is coarse ground, and that is from that we make a cold brew and we make you serve. So that base of cold brew in itself would be having a very differentiated taste as opposed to an instant coffee or a black coffee or an espresso that you are going to have.
Okay.
So first was that you entirely wash the mucus and you lay it under the sun and you dry it. Second was that you depulp, you just leave the mucus as it is and you dry it and you get the beans. And third is that you keep the cherry entirely under the sun. So it would
You don't
be
depulp it.
you don't depulp it, and you keep it under the sun and it would dry on its own. It would ferment and it would dry on its own, and then you process the coffee, grate the coffee, process it, and you get it. In between there is also a process called hulling. So for example, after you have removed the mucus, after you have dried it, then there is a small parchment paper like thing which is there on the coffee beans. So you have to remove
Once you ride it.
once
Okay.
you have dried it. So once you remove that parchment, then what you get is raw coffee beans which is ready to get roasted.
Okay.
So this is the basic of growing coffee, growing and processing coffee beans.
Sure.
So depending on the process of how you dry your coffee beans, you would get your taste accordingly. Like if you want a layer of complexity in that, you would let the mucus be, or if you want more floral notes, etc., you would just let it dry naturally, and the natural sugars would be getting attached to the beans and you get it roasted. So
Okay.
first part is that. The second stage comes to roasting. So roasting also has its own set of complexities. You cannot just roast the coffee to an extreme end and you serve it like a one size fits all kind of an approach. So I heard a very relatable analogy that coffee bean roasting is similar to the process of rice making or popcorn making. So
Okay.
for example, if you overcook a rice and if you just let it be in open air, then it is going to get oxidized and it is going to rot. So a rice should not be overcooked and neither it should be undercooked. So there is an entire spectrum of roasting. Like if you roast it extremely hard, if it's going to be dark, if it's going to be brown, then 90% to 95% of its flavor profiles, of its flavor spectrum, it would be getting dissolved and you would be getting only hard nutty taste out of the
People
coffee.
do prefer it, or is it
In
like
India, we are not aware about the different roast profiles. That's why we just ask for coffee or coffee which is mixed with chicory.
oh chicory?
Yeah, it is diluted basically. So the typical filter coffee that you would be having, it is 70-30 mix. 70% is hard dark roasted coffee and 30% is chicory.
Chicory basically helps coffee to mix with
Yeah,
any other.
yeah,
like,
it is a good base.
liquid.
It
Yeah.
provides a good base and it kind of blunts out the sharp coffee flavors or bold coffee flavors
Because
that
we
you
don't
face.
have that kind of a
Because we do
palate.
not have that kind of a
Okay.
palate. And second, it is very easy to handle and keep it for 1 year to 2 years. It is shelf stable. It provides shelf stability.
Okay.
So the easiest way to export coffee or the easiest way to supply coffee in the market is to roast it extremely hard towards the darker side, mix it with chicory and sell it in the market. That's
and
the
also
easiest.
so because we don't have that kind of an understanding of the roast
Absolutely.
spectrum, so they are just selling us to whatever
Correct.
is profitable to them,
Correct.
and then we are just
Correct.
consuming
We
it.
just know what is being sold to us.
Okay.
So for example, all the Nescafes of the world or all the Starbucks of the world, etc., they do not focus so much on the roast profile. When you go and ask for a coffee, nobody talks about what is the roast profile. Do you need a lighter roast? Do you need a darker roast? Do you need any kind of a roast? Nobody asks. Third wave or Blue Tokai, sometimes if you go, then probably they would be educating you about the roast profile if you are buying the beans. But while having the coffee, they would not be talking about the roast profile.
But even at the bigger brands, like let's say you're talking about Starbucks and Blue Tokai, they are also operating on the same principle that we'll do the darker roast and all that.
Because it's easier to handle.
Okay.
Because another factor that kicks in is that after the coffee is roasted, it should be in airtight container. The moment you
Okay.
oxidize it, cooked coffee is like iron. If you oxidize it, then there is a part of a rust which gets caught up with iron. Similar thing happens with coffee.
Okay.
If you roast it and if it comes in direct contact with oxygen, then it would not be having the same profile after 2 days or 3 days. And if you are running a commercial grade kitchen, or if you are exporting roasted coffee, nobody exports roasted coffee, they export green coffee. But if you want to handle large quantities of coffee, then this roasting happens pretty fast. It is very difficult to create a vacuum and completely cut it off oxygen. So the darker you roast, the easier it is to handle it. The lighter you roast, the more difficult it is to handle. But for the customer, the lighter roast would be having a more variety of flavors. Here in the darker roast, you would be saying that it is nutty, it is blunt, it is bold, it is giving you an instant kick. On the lighter roast, you would be having a variety of flavors. You would be having a slight higher acidity. You would be having bitter sour notes. You would be having fruity floral notes, depending on how the coffee has been grown and how the coffee has been roasted.
Is this similar kind of a consumer trend across other countries also, or is it just India who is not aware about the roasting spectrum?
India, I would say, is in a kind of a learning curve where they are getting introduced to coffee recently.
Okay.
So right now they are focused only on taste. They are focused on
Understood.
flavor. The hard connoisseurs of coffee, the ones who have traveled across the world and they have had the original form of coffee, when they have gotten a hook of that, they are coming back to India and they are saying that I need that kind of a coffee which I had in Ireland or which I had in Europe
Other
or
countries
something
are
like.
basically.
Yeah. So they are the education points for us.
Got it.
So we have a very small group of customers who have that deeper understanding of coffee in the purest form. They typically go to the roasters and say that, I want a lighter roast, or I want it roasted only up to 10 minutes, or I want it roasted up to first drop. So a lot of cafes you might be seeing, they sell their coffee beans also.
Yeah.
So they would be mentioning that this has been roasted up to the first drop. So for example, like you pop a popcorn in a pot. Similarly, the coffee beans get popped when they are roasted. So instantly when they get popped for the first time and they drop, immediately you switch off the roaster and you get it
That's
off.
like a lighter roast, could say.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's the first
yeah,
drop.
yeah,
Okay, got it.
So that they mention out there in their packaging that this is a first drop and this has been
Does
roasted.
this go like first drop, second drop, third drop? Or
Not sequentially, but you can, they clearly mention a light roast, medium roast, dark roast.
Okay.
So
that
we were
way.
talking about what are the differentiating factors between a coffee in terms of taste.
Yeah.
So not particularly good coffee, bad coffee, but I would say that what are the differentiating factors in a coffee. So roast plays a very important part, whether it's a dark roast, mild roast, or light roast. The lighter the roast, the more variety of the flavors you would get to enjoy, but it is as much difficult to handle them, because even if you get a light roast from any of the cafe, it should be consumed within 3 days, not more than that. After 3 days, you would not be getting the same kind of a quality from that light roast coffee.
And I think it largely so also depends upon the consumer palate, because I don't like my coffee to be sugar.
Yeah.
So maybe the driving force also stays like.
Absolutely.
Okay. Got
Absolutely.
it.
Then even after the roast also, the ground size also matters. So for example, lighter the roast, the more acidic it is. The darker the roast, the less acidic it is. And acid is directly proportional to the flavor profile that you get.
Okay.
So that is the function of the roast quality that you have. Then it is about the ground size. If you
What is
ground the
ground
coffee,
size?
so the raw coffee cherry that you roasted, you have to ground them. उसको पीसना पड़ता है. जैसे आप पीनट्स पीसते हो या कोई भी चीज़ पीसते हो, वैसे आपको पीसना पड़ता है. तो आपने बहुत ज़्यादा फाइन पीसा उसको और फिर उसको पानी के कांटेक्ट में रखा, देन इट इज़ गोइंग टू गेट मोर डिजॉल्व विद वाटर, बिकॉज आपने उसको फाइन रखा और वो वाटर की डेंसिटी के साथ मैलिएबल हो जाता है, तो उसमें कॉफ़ी का फ्लेवर थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा आएगा आपको एज कम्पेयर टू आपने कोर्स ग्राउंड रखा है और आप फिर मैनुअल पोर यूज़ कर रहे हो जैसे आपका फ्रेंड यूज़ करता होगा. तो उसमें वो जो ग्राउंड साइज़ होती है वो थोड़ी सी ज़्यादा मतलब क्या बोलते हैं उसको, कोर्स बोलते हैं उसको. तो उसमें आपको थोड़ा सा फ्लेवर कम आएगा, बट उसमें कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी थोड़ी सी अच्छी आएगी उसमें. दैट्स व्हाई कोल्ड ब्रूज आर मोर स्मूथ एज कम्पेयर टू मैनुअल ब्रू. आप यूज़ कर रहे हो उसको, आप 12 आवर्स के लिए रखते हो, तो उसमें जो कॉफ़ी का फ्लेवर होता है वो बहुत धीरे से मैलिएबल उसमें जाता है, तो उसमें हार्ड मिक्स नहीं होता है. मतलब इन लेमन टर्म्स हार्ड मिक्स नहीं होता है, उसमें स्लो नेचुरल मिक्स होता है. तो उसके वजह से कोल्ड ब्रूज आर प्रिटी स्मूथ. सो समवन बिटवीन 18 to 30 हु इज ट्राइंग कॉफ़ी new who is health conscious, who likes a bit of a bitter taste in their drinks, who wants a bit of a complexity in their drink. हर चीज़ मीठा नहीं चाहिए, मतलब मेरे को मीठे के अलावा पूरा वाइड स्पेक्ट्रम ऑफ फ्लेवर पहले चाहिए. मीठे से थोड़ा कम मीठा हो, कम मीठे से थोड़ा बिटर हो. एंड समवेयर वी एसोसिएट बिटरनेस विथ हेल्दी ऑल्सो, कि थोड़ी चीज़ थोड़ी बिटर हो तो थोड़ा वो हेल्दी है. तो उनके लिए कोल्ड ब्रू इज़ द बेस्ट थिंग टू गेट इंट्रोड्यूस बिकॉज इट इज़ मोर blunt and it is very smooth to consume as compared to an espresso shot. Espresso shot is like कि पानी और कॉफ़ी को प्रेशर के साथ तुरंत उसका शॉट निकाल के आपको दे दिया. तो इट वुड बी लाइक एन इंस्टेंट एनर्जी किक, आपको तुरंत वो एनर्जी किक देगा. बट टेस्ट वाइज आपको स्लो कॉफ़ी इन्जॉय करना है, इट वुड बी हैविंग वेरी शार्पर नोट्स, आपको हिट करेगा वो. तो जो नया अगर कंज्यूम कर रहा है उसको इंस्टेंटली नहीं मज़ा आएगा उसमें.
Got it. So what your sourcing process look like? Like how are you sourcing your coffee?
Yeah, so we have partnered with a local roaster here in Bangalore.
Okay.
And our roaster directly sources the coffee from Chikmagalur. So there are a variety of estates from where they source it. And we give them a specification that we want our coffee in a particular format. For example, for cold brew, we ask them to get a honey dried coffee.
Okay.
So honey dried with mucus. वो कॉफ़ी हमको चाहिए एंड वो कोर्स ग्राउंड करके हमको 70:30 रेशियो में देते हैं. So 70:30 is 70, no, so 70% is Arabica, 30% is Robusta.
Okay.
So we did not talk about the two broad varieties of coffee, that is Arabica and Robusta.
Okay.
So Arabica is something which grows in higher altitudes and which is high in acidity and which is a lot more smoother as compared to Robusta. So these are basically two different cherry types. So Arabica is more round in texture, the beans are more round in texture like that. Robusta is, as the name suggests, it is the plant itself is more robust. तो मतलब उसको ज़्यादा ऑल्टीट्यूड नहीं चाहिए. 0 to 1000 मीटर्स अबव सी लेवल में रोबस्टा ग्रो कर सकता है. टेम्परेचर के लिए भी अगर 20 to 30 डिग्रीज अगर उसको टेम्परेचर मिल रहा है विथ डिसेंट अमाउंट ऑफ रेनफॉल, इट विल ग्रो. सो दैट इज़ रोबस्टा. टेस्ट प्रोफाइल में अरेबिका वुड बी मोर सिल्की, वेलवेटी, चॉकलेटी काइंड ऑफ अ फ्लेवर. रोबस्टा वुड बी मोर नटी, बोल्ड. एनर्जी केक आपको ज़्यादा चाहिए तो रोबस्टा इज़ द थिंग. सो इंडिया में 80-90% रोबस्टा ग्रो होता है, 10 to 20% Arabica grow होता है.
Because it's like Arabica needs a lot more particulars in terms of the growth.
Yeah.
Okay, that way. Got it. And what are the key areas in India we are getting coffee, Robusta from?
So coffee कहीं पे भी grow करने के लिए it has to be between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn.
Okay.
And it needs a particular temperature. So for example, Arabica grow करने के लिए the ideal temperature is between 15 degree to 25 degrees on an average.
Okay.
With decent amount of rainfalls, not extreme amount of rainfall, not extremely low amount of rainfall.
Sure.
With Robusta, we can go a little loose. Robusta, the altitude can be between 0 to 1000 meters of altitude and temperature can be between 20 degrees to 30 degrees as well.
Sure.
So that is for coffee growth. कहीं पे भी आपको coffee grow करना हो तो आपको ये condition match करना होगा, then you would be getting good coffee. Then second comes, these coffee should be grown under a shade. So shade मतलब not artificial shades. The coffee trees are not very long, they are decently short. Around them you should be having a good amount of diversity. So India में I would like to mention that India में we have that as a natural advantage. Europeans और US में ये सारे standards लिखे हुए हैं that your coffee should be shade grown, there should be a good amount of diversity around the place where you are growing coffee, it should be hand picked. तो आप जब ये कॉफ़ी प्लग करके आप जब एक्सपोर्ट करते हो, देन यूरोपियन नेशंस एंड यूएस नेशंस आर रेडी टू पे अ प्रीमियम फॉर दैट.
Because we are adhering to whatever the set.
We are adhering not as per the set standards. हम naturally ही हमेशा इस तरीके से कॉफ़ी ग्रो करते हैं. हमारी सिस्टम ही ऐसी बनी हुई है.
But how is a shade thing going on?
So how is a shade thing grown on is कि एक कॉफ़ी होता है, कॉफ़ी के साथ साथ कार्डमम का पेड़ भी उगता है, पेपर का पेड़ भी उगता है. तो जैसे आप कभी you should definitely go to see a coffee plantation.
I actually, so I have been to one estate.
Yeah.
That's why they had this cardamom. They also made me try that, but I was not sure why cardamom there. I thought that I had no reasoning to this, but I am so happy that you busted that bubble for me,
Yeah.
because otherwise I would have been clueless. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
yeah.
सो वो शेड ग्रोन होता है. शेड ग्रोन होने से ये होता है कि जो कॉफ़ी चेरी है, वंस द प्लांटेशन इज़ फ्रक्टिफाइड, उसको डायरेक्ट सनलाइट नहीं आ रही है, वो सनलाइट छन छन के आ रही है जो उनके उसके ऊपर शेड है. इट फॉर्म्स अ कैनोपी ऑन टॉप ऑफ द कॉफ़ी ट्रीज.
And is it like, let's say there is a plantation and it's a big plantation, so they do it proportionately so that all the coffee estate is getting that shade?
Yeah.
Like, is it like they do
Yeah,
it
they kind of do it proportionately, or they are very careful of the fact that they grow cardamom pepper plantations in equal amount of distance or in decent distances, so that it gives a good canopy to the coffee tree.
Okay, that way, got it. And they are like, if you're talking about the cardamom tree, so it's like good enough, big enough.
Yeah,
so that
it's
it
big
can get
enough.
a-
Cardamom hai, pepper hai.
Okay.
There are a lot of other trees also which
How
grows
come
around it.
we are following of from the get go? We had this kind of practices. Let's say we'll pluck it by our hands, or this shading thing.
Yeah.
Like, how are we doing it and other countries are not
So
doing
that was
it?
a blessing in disguise. Like for example, countries in Brazil, countries in Vietnam, so countries like Brazil, countries like Vietnam, or countries like Africa, they were more commercially exposed to this. So
Okay.
commercialization में हमेशा ये होता है that you are more exposed to technology. आपको bulk में करना है, fast करना है, तो आपको लोग technology से support भी करते हैं और आप फटाफट उससे adapt करते हो. But later, after people got a lot more sensitive about climate, a lot more sensitive about diversity, about biohygiene, etc., then they got to realize that that this is not the ideal way to grow and pluck coffee. It is ideal to pluck it with hands. It is ideal to grow it with a lot of biodiversity. तो हम वो टेक्नोलॉजी से पहले उतना ज़्यादा एक्सपोज नहीं थे, luckily, because our volumes were not that high as compared to a Brazil or Ethiopia or Vietnam. तो उसके वजह से हमारे लिए उतना कमर्शियल सेंस मेक नहीं करता था कि हम उतनी बड़ी मशीन्स उतने लार्ज स्केल पे हम मैन्युफैक्चर करें. So for us, it was always about mixing our coffee farming with cardamom, pepper, so that it makes decent business sense. Was this year, if the coffee does not grow, then I have sizable plantation of cardamom and pepper, and that will give a decent ROI for me. So that was a blessing in disguise. Now it has come out just 10 to 15 years back. Now it has come out as a mandate by the European nations and by others that we will be specifically tagging this kind of products. It is called Geo-Tagging, and if you are following a bunch of practices, then we will Geo-Tag it, and for that Geo-Tag we are ready to pay a premium.
Okay.
And we'll mention that in our packaging, etc.
Is it mentioned?
Yeah, it's mentioned.
Like,
Usually so there are different bodies like Rainforest Alliance, and there are different bodies who give you certifications. So while you are exporting the coffee, if you attach that certification, then you deserve to get a premium for that. And the ones who is paying a premium, it is in his interest that he also charges a premium from his customer by saying that this coffee is geo-tagged and it follows sustainable practices, etc. So we did not follow it by design, but because of some reasons we have been doing that. The sad part is a lot of people do not know about it. So for example, in India, if you go in a Blue Tokai or you order coffee somewhere, and if someone says, or if you are buying beans, raw beans, and if someone says it is geo-tagged and it is hand-picked, people would be saying that, so what? I mean, I need the cheapest coffee possible, and someone is giving me for 1,000 rupees for 250 grams, you give me for 950. So we are price conscious in that sense. We are not that forward in paying an extra buck for hand-picked coffee. But somewhere outside, someone outside, they are willing to pay a premium for that.
I think the awareness also plays a very important role here.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'm pretty sure that in coming couple of years, as in when the customer is aware enough, they would probably appreciate.
Absolutely, that's where platforms like yours they play a major role in raising that awareness that that coffee खाली taste के लिए नहीं पीना होता है. हाँ, बायो सस्टेनेबिलिटी और बाकी सारे फैक्टर्स भी हैं पीछे, जिसके वजह से लाइक आपकी कॉफ़ी बाहर वाले बहुत अप्रिशिएट कर रहे हैं, लेकिन आप यहाँ इंडिया में रह के नहीं अप्रिशिएट कर रहे हो.
Okay, so according to you, you have a coffee place in Bangalore, right? And you had this cloud kitchen. So you must have observed, like, is Bangalore customer, like how are they operating in terms of price sensitivity? Since we have a lot of key players here in coffee, and South India is also a contributing factor because that's where a lot of coffee originates from.
Yeah.
So what kind of patterns you have noticed so far when it comes to price, coffee, and in Bangalore?
Yeah. So Bangalore has a unique advantage of being a gateway for coffee for pan-India consumption. From the supply side, Bangalore is very close to Chikmagalur, so supply बहुत easy मिलता है. And someone who wants to roast coffee pretty fast and supply it in the market, it can happen like within a few days. Like एक हफ्ते में ready coffee beans आ सकती है, roast करके आप market में दे सकते हो. So that is a unique advantage with Bangalore. Another unique advantage is that the majority of the customers in Bangalore, typically the ones who belong to Sec A, a social economic class of Section A, they basically are well traveled. They have traveled across the globe, etc. They are well educated. So they are the ones who appreciate consuming a wide variety of coffee. And it can be related to flavor, it can be related to the coffee bean quality, originality, etc. So that's the reason that वो जो supply और demand का जो fine balance है, fine mix है, that you get very well in Bangalore. So that's the reason you see so many cafes cropping up, and all of them coming with their own set of nuances about coffee and supplying it to their customers.
Okay, and according to you, who all are like doing really good job? Since you must be knowing a lot about coffee. So what are the key players in this industry as of now? We're not talking about Starbucks because they are global leaders.
Sure.
So, but locally, who all are there?
So there are three sections. One is, as you mentioned, the global leaders. So the ones who run national chains.
Like
so
Starbucks,
you have Starbucks, Blue Tokai, Up Coffee. Subco is coming up recently. So
Subco is local only, right?
No, so Subco is a chain based out of Mumbai. They started from Mumbai.
Okay.
They raised decent amount of funding, about $10 million if I'm not wrong, from Gauri Khan's office and from the Kamath brothers. And they have a plan of going global. So their motto, their agenda is to make Indian coffee famous all across the world.
Okay.
So recently they have also opened stores in Dubai.
Got it.
They are also following the trails of a Starbucks, but in an artisanal way. They want to keep it niche, do not make it over available, but they want to create a chain of sorts across India and across the globe. So one is the chains, the ones who open about 50, 100 stores, 200 stores across India and across the globe. So those are the chains. Second are the local players. So local players, maybe there are two parts. One are the ones who like to serve it to the mass. They want to focus on availability. They want to focus on affordability.
Cheap.
They would be serving coffee for about $10, $12, $15. I personally like that coffee also a lot. For example, if you try a filter coffee from Rameshwaram, oh god, it tastes amazing. And it is 70-30 mix chicory and normal coffee, but it tastes really good. So those are the local coffee providers who buy coffee. They have a filter copy machine and they serve coffee for about 10 rupees or 12 rupees.
Sure.
And there are other local players who run a boutique artisanal cafe of sorts, who purposefully do not scale it big because they want to have a very tight control on quality, and they want to serve coffee of a one of a kind to their customers.
Who all are these?
So for example, I draw my inspiration a lot from Maverick and Farm. So Maverick and Farms, they have about 2 or 3 cafes in Bangalore, and they focus a lot on sourcing, a lot on one of a kind coffee flavors. For example, recently they have started mixing coffee with jaggery, and the jaggeries that they source, that is also one of a kind. For example, they have started with Nolen Good coffee. So Nolen Good is a date palm jaggery which you typically get from West Bengal.
So they are sourcing jaggery.
So they source specific jaggery from there, and they mix it with their coffee and they serve it. And they have a series of these jaggeries. Some of these jaggeries are specially grown in south of India. They source it from there and they mix it that way. So for example, Maverick and Farm, they focus very sharply on sourcing, on the kind of coffee they are serving and the kind of flavors they are offering. So that is one. Beanlore is another coffee house that I I like because of the flavor experiments that they do and the overall vibe that they match with the young professionals. So for example, the startup crowd, they like to meet they like to meet and have a coffee, and they want to have semi-formal conversation. So between vibe and taste, both, I like Bangalore a lot. So that is another one. Araku mixes fine dine, art and coffee pretty well. So Araku is another cafe. Like
Is
they
it
have
specifically coffee, or because they have fine dining also?
yeah,
right?
they have mixed fine dine and fine coffee. So they they must have wanted to elevate the experience of coffee to the next best level. That's why they have mixed art, fine dine and coffee.
Is it like Subco minus fine dining in terms of art and coffee?
Subco, I think, is both fine dine and coffee, both of it. So for example, their comfort food. So Subco focuses comfort food, gives them a good remix of Western world and Indian flavors, fuses it, and then presents it quite artisanally to the end customers. And their entire vibe is also kind of about thinking free, open, thinking different. Their creatives, etc., also speak out loud about like thinking differently and thinking artisanally. So Subco is that. So those are the wide. Nerlu is another cafe which is a local cafe, and the vibe entirely is that of a co-working come art inspired cafe, where you get a lot of art inspired things and art inspired
I am very conflicted by the fact that coffee is like so many brands, like as good as Subco is trying to create the fusion of coffee plus art. Like, why is there such a strong
so as far as I understand, that is coming from the fact that we are at a very early stage of consuming coffee. So for example, someone like you who is a heavy chai drinker, they want newer opportunities where they can get themselves introduced to coffee. So for example, if I blend coffee with art, or blend coffee with artisanal dessert, or blend coffee with artisanal food, then if you are traveling from here to Kormangla, you would have one more reason to try a Subco, because you are getting an artisanal sandwich or an artisanal comfort food along with some decent cool vibe, along with some coffee. So I have to have multiple diverse opportunities and reasons to pull my customers to my place so that they get introduced to coffee, and if my coffee is really good, then they eventually can get habituated of that coffee.
I think that's a nudge to some degree, because if you offer me a good working environment, maybe if I'm not a coffee drinker but I'll tag along, like that's how I went to Subco. These people were at Subco. I'm not a coffee fan, but they told me that vibe is nice and all that. So I think that's pretty much about to a nudge with
because one of the podcasts, or like I have also observed that in the developed markets, in the Western markets, taking your cup of coffee and walking along the street to your work is a thing. So even if you open a cafe in a 50 by 50 space, 50 by 50 is quite long, quite big, even if you open it in a small place, if it's in a hole in a wall cafe kind of a thing, yet there would be ample amount of people who would be grabbing your cup of Joe and they would be going. In India, that culture has still not evolved. In India, that culture is still there with chai, where they would be having their meeting related snuggles, or they would be bitching about their boss on chai ka tapri, but they would not be grabbing a cup of Joe and walking along to their office. That behavior has not yet evolved or come in India.
But it will, I think.
Yeah, it will eventually whenever it comes. So for someone like us who is trying to get into an artisanal space of coffee, trying to provide an artisanal dessert, we have to get it an angle of gourmet, a special reason for someone to try us. Now to give that special reason, we have to layer it on top of experience, vibe, art, a lot of different culture, so that you come once and try. If you try, then hopefully you would be getting hooked and you would be wanting to come again and again.
Okay. And you are having a cloud kitchen in Bangalore. So just quickly walk us through, like, how exactly do you open a cloud kitchen? Tentatively, what kind of investments do we need? Specifically, somebody is looking to open a similar kind of a space in Bangalore, since you are having that kind of an exposure. So if you could
So you can open a cloud kitchen right out of your home. Even a kitchen that you are having, you can open a cloud kitchen from there. That's how we started. I started by supplying coffee to my society neighbors, and I used to go home to home and deliver them coffee. And that's where I got an idea that I can get an FSSAI license, and that is the primary requirement. You get a state level FSSAI license. The authorities would be coming and checking your facility, and if it's perfectly fine,
Can they come at home and check the
yeah,
facilities?
they can come at home and they can check your premises. And if you get an FSSAI license, you need to submit that on the platform. You fill a normal form.
Which platform is this?
Swiggy and Zomato. And you have a normal form where they would also be requiring you to have a GST certificate. So GST and FSSAI license, these are the two documents that you need to procure. Once you have it, you just register your form along with these two key documents, and like within hours or within one day, your registration gets approved. And once your registration gets approved, you upload your photographs, do a basic product photography. It should look cool, look appealing, and once you approve that, you can get onboarded on Swiggy and
Swiggy
Zomato.
doesn't have any sort of a benchmarks that they will reject you on certain basis?
They have. So for example, if there is some hanky-panky stuff with FSSAI, or there are some hanky-panky stuff with GST, or let's suppose your product photography is not up to the mark, or let's suppose after first 2 orders or first 10 orders you have received more than acceptable levels of complaints, then they would flag you, then they would bar you.
Okay.
So if for the first 10 days you are through that, then you would not be getting any such bad remark or such flagging systems from Swiggy or Zomato.
Okay. So when you said that if there is any issue with GST or the other certificate, so aren't they issuing the certificate and that's like a good enough certificate to go with Swiggy also? Like what kind of a here and there that could happen, that if I'll upload this certificate, they'll get that it will get rejected?
So maybe like a basic hygiene stuff, like for example, you have uploaded the PAN of your company, the name in the PAN is different and the name in FSSAI license is different.
Some small things.
Yeah, or maybe your FSSAI license is going to get expired in the next 15 days. So if those things are going to come in between, or maybe you have just tried to duplicate it and maybe tried to change the name only, then it gets caught up pretty fast and then they would be flagging it.
And how long is the certificate valid for?
This is typically valid for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, depending on the charge that you pay to the authority.
And how much charge do we have to pay?
It typically it depends between 1500 to 2000 rupees.
Okay, 1 year.
For 1 year.
So when it comes to Swiggy, so Cloud Kitchen, you are operating as of now from your home, or have you expanded?
So we have a cloud kitchen of our own in our home, as well as we have a cloud kitchen separately in BTM. So we run a couple of them, and that's how we cater to the supply.
So your BTM one is like you have bought into some commercial space, or is it again?
So that should be a commercial space. You rent out a space. The best part about this space is that you don't have to spend a lot in terms of interiors, etc. It should be having a basic hygiene, and it should be a place which is readily approachable by Swiggy and Zomato riders. So you take it there, hand it over to the team, set basic processes, and you are...
But what made you expand to BTM? Because of you were trying to explore to different areas, or were the demand in your home location grew to a degree that you could not cater?
So one is demand was quite high. Second was Swiggy and Zomato helps you supply the material within a particular area, within a particular boundary. So that boundary is it's between 5 kilometers, 5 to 7 kilometers.
5 kilometers,
Yeah. At times, once you are consistent on Swiggy and Zomato, your radius increases, but then that depends on a lot of factors like availability of riders, etc. For example, I have a friend in Sarjapur. She likes my coffee a lot, but whenever she tries to order, on some days it is showing as available, on some days it would be showing that it is too far. Like you must have also noticed for a lot of restaurants, it would be showing that it's too far to order.
Sense. Okay.
So those are the factors which depend. So for example, if I want to cater to my audience residing in Jayanagar or JP Nagar or Koramangala or Sarjapur, I won't be able to suffice that through my cloud kitchen. I would have to open a separate kitchen over there so that I can be regular in that zone, in that area.
So your BTM layout cloud kitchen, you have to pay rent and the machines and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And when it comes to, you are listed on Swiggy I've seen your Swiggy.
Yeah, Swiggy and Zomato, both of it. Yeah.
And Zomato also follows a similar listing structure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Swiggy, what kind of, let's say, cuts or something they do in order to, like, let's say if I place an order of 350, so how much are you eventually getting and how much is Swiggy?
It's quite high. It's very high. It's somewhere between 25% to 31%.
Oh,
that's the basic commission that is charged by the platform guys.
Okay.
And then on top you have to pay the discovery fees or the marketing fees that you have to pay. So for example, if you are not discoverable easily, you have to constantly run ads, because there are a lot of restaurants, lot of cafes who are offering the same items that you are offering.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are not running ads, then someone who is searching, let's say, coffee on Swiggy, if you are not running ads, then you would not be appearing on top 3 restaurant list or choices. Then you have to depend only on your word of mouth, on your organic reach.
But isn't lot many, like, let's say there are 20 coffee sellers in an area,
so
aren't all running discoverability ads? So
it's like almost all of them. Almost all of them have to run because of hyper competition, because if they are not running, then somebody else is running, and because you are searching coffee, all of the customers are not that particular that I want to order coffee only from the Puck Story. Somebody is okay to order, let's say if somebody is saying that I'm getting coffee within 15 minutes from a Up Coffee, or if I'm getting coffee within 20 minutes from a Beanlore, so they are okay to switch and they can order from there.
Convenience.
Yeah.
And what kind of a, just tentatively, if you don't mind, so let's say in a month, what kind of a marketing spend are we expecting from Swiggy to happen?
So typically Swiggy and Zomato have their own limits set. So they would be studying what is the traction that you are getting. Basis that, they will be giving you the choice of recharging your wallet, and they would be cutting it off from the total amount that they owe you towards the end of the week.
Okay.
So for example, if you are getting a traction of 10,000 rupees weekly, so they would be giving you a limit of 4,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees for spending on Swiggy. And towards the end, when you get an order of 10,000 rupees, from 10,000 they would deduct that 4,000 rupees and will be giving you 6,000 rupees.
Okay.
Of course, minus commissions, etc., minus Swiggy commissions, etc. So that's how it typically works.
Okay, got it. Okay, so when it comes to the conversion, when, like, if the person is visiting Swiggy to now being a long-term loyal consumer, so what kind of a conversion are you practically seeing in so far?
So Swiggy and Zomato was a means to an end. It was not an end in itself. We started with Swiggy and Zomato to test the waters. Earlier we always thought that, you know, the kind of a coffee we are imagining in our head, would that be making sense with the real audience or not? We have positioned ourselves in a niche premium segment. Some of our coffees are priced as high as 325, 300 rupees, and our normal range starts from 225. So we were a little apprehensive that people would be accepting us with that kind of a price tag, with the kind of a brand and style that we have to offer, because we are relatively fresh, we are relatively new. So one, Swiggy was to get a market validation. It was a kind of a MVP, you can say. So we have gone past that MVP, and we would be going smoothly with Swiggy and Zomato from the perspective of helping our TG try our coffee, not from the perspective of scaling our business.
Okay.
Because the commission structures, the marketing fees, after the commission structures, after the marketing fees, etc., running only a cloud cafe becomes really difficult to make absolute business sense in terms of margins, in terms of profitability, so on and so forth. So to create a long-term brand, especially for the menu that we have engineered, it makes a lot more sense to have an offline experiential center. And the way we are thinking about the Puck Story is that we would want to go offline while having a lot of layers of experience on top of coffee. So coffee is going to be the main hero amongst the offerings. Along with coffee, we would want to get into maybe art, maybe D2C roadshow experiences of sorts, and maybe into desserts. So that's the idea that we are exploring.
Okay. And you also mentioned that probably down the line you are thinking to go onto the sides of physical this thing. So when it comes to cafe culture, specifically in Bangalore, so I'm pretty sure that the cafe owners also do face some degree of challenges. So, what could be the key challenges when it comes to operating a cafe specifically in Bangalore?
So the biggest challenge is the real estate space, because if you are because if you really want to get into the experiential segment, then everything matters, right? From the size of space to the look and feel of space, the kind of vibe it emits. Accessibility is the biggest challenge because Bangalore is notorious for its traffic. So you have to be accessible. At the same time, you have to give a look and feel of a premium cafe, and it is something which is recurring. It is not that just once you have given and that's it. Every single day you have to stay committed to that standards that you have set. So that playbook, that experiential playbook that needs to be created, it requires a lot of capital expenditure as well as it is operational expenditure heavy.
Okay.
So these are the two things which are the biggest challenges, and in effect they are the biggest moat as well. If someone is able to do that for a good consistent 3 to 4 years, then it is very difficult to replicate that playbook by someone else.
Okay, got it. And when it comes to people behavior in terms of their habits and the kind of a rising, like the startup culture which exhibit in Bangalore, so are we gonna have any degree of a challenges from that aspect also, or is it gonna sort of smoothen the path, at least for Puck's story?
I didn't understand your question in terms of like the TG that we have a startup hustle culture within Bangalore. So are you trying to say?
Yeah, so for example, let's say people take their work to cafes. That's what they usually do. It's like work from cafe.
Yeah.
But now that particular person is gonna, let's say, occupy a space in a cafe for 3 hours, 4 hours at max, and that kind of a culture is there in Bangalore. They usually use cafes for this. So is this behavior obstructs the growth of a cafe, or it does contribute to a growth of a cafe?
So there are two angles to it. One is what you are saying. It is called, like, people treat cafe as a third space. So first space is their home, second space is their office, third space is in between the office and the homely vibe. So that is called the third space culture, and that is how the third wave coffee culture kind of grew across the globe. People treat it as a third space. So one is the third space culture helps you to tap a lot of audiences who are typically, let's say, chai drinking, or the ones who are not that enthused about going out and sitting at a place and relaxing and doing work. So third space culture allows you to attract a lot of audience, and it so happens that if someone is sitting at a cafe, then eventually they would order something. So on a Monday or a Tuesday, if you do not have a third space culture, then it is very difficult to see someone just going to that cafe to pick up a coffee. So it gives an additional reason for someone to come and sit. So in terms of occupancy rates, it kind of increases if you are offering a third space experience.
Okay.
But in terms of table turnaround, it again kind of nullifies the effect, because someone can utilize that space for about 3 hours or 4 hours while just ordering a $250 worth of coffee.
Yeah.
And you are not allowed to go and nudge that person that was you are sitting for 2.5 hours. Now please vacate. Somebody else is waiting. The customer is become so demanding that they would not want anyone to disturb them, and they would want to have a seamless internet connection. They would want to have a seamless ambient environment in terms of AC, in terms of lights, in terms of noise, so on and so forth.
Okay.
So there are benefits and advantages to offering an experience like a third space, and also there is a disadvantage inherent in offering a third space like environment, because the table turnaround kind of goes down pretty much.
So I am agree, like you must be you are sort of gonna enter this space, and these are like the overall challenges.
Yeah.
So how do you see first of all tackling this, or if any of the brands who have sort of have completely taken over this and are actually doing a good job.
Yeah.
So if you have any of those in mind when it comes to the Bangalore ecosystem.
So I'll again come back to Maverick and Farm. So Maverick and Farm we draw the maximum inspiration from because they have opened a couple of cafes. I don't know if they have opened more cafes than 2, where they have opened a shop-in-shop kind of a concept. For example, one of their cafes is inside a BMW bike showroom. So half of the cafe is occupied by BMW bikes and half of the showroom is occupied by their cafe. And apparently it does wonderful. So we want to get into that kind of a concept where we can either open a shop-in-shop kind of a thing while having a partnership, or probably if we are the whole and sole operator of that cafe, then we might want to tie up other engaging experiences which can come along really cool with coffee.
Okay.
So for example, maybe an art or maybe a live workshop kind of a thing, or maybe a D2C roadshow, or maybe a travel talk, or maybe a storytelling session around travel, impact, something of that sort.
Okay.
Maybe a live TED talk kind of a show where people can disconnect from their daily humdrums of life and they can actually pause and reflect back that what is happening around the world, and you can like explore so many different aspects of life through different things and different mediums.
Is somebody doing this already?
I don't think so.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, the kind of an engagement that I am talking about, I don't think people are doing.
That's gonna be new for
Yeah, I think
story.
I think so, and I'm assuming that it would be difficult to execute as well, because these two are completely different genres. One is into events and marketing and another is running a cafe or running a restaurant. So
I'm actually very surprised that Maverick and Farm came with a concept of doing BMW plus this. Like, it's something so I don't think a lot of people are doing this.
Yeah, so they themselves are not managing the BMW showroom. That's what I think. BMW showroom is occupied by a different entity. They must have gone and they must have asked for partnership or something of that sort, and that's how they happen to open. But that is something that I like in the sense that you have a fine balance between the kind of experience that you want to give and the economical sense that might be coming along with, if the economical sense is about, because customers have been accustomed to being demanding. Like, you see the Starbucks of the world or third waves of the world, the kind of experience they deliver. Almost every coffee drinker would be having this basic expectation that the vibe should be nice, the lighting should be warm, there should not be much noise, the Wi-Fi should be up and running, the AC should be up and running. Those are the basic hygienes, but over and above that, the normal vibe is the new hygiene that is there for the coffee drinkers. So if you want to give that experience, that has become the new basic, that you have to be very cool.
I think do you think Indian customers or like Bangalore people as compared to other cities would be different, because they largely take a lot of advantage of cafe culture, like working from cafes in general? I don't think so that kind of maybe in Delhi or Gurgaon it must be prevailing, but when it comes to other cities, is there a kind of a customer shift that probably you have noticed?
It's similar. If it's not same, it is similar. For example, Bombay is crammed up in terms of spaces. You do not get a lot of space. You do not get a lot of open space if you compare it with a Gurgaon, Delhi or a Bangalore. The space are very limited. But whatever limited space is available, that needs to be utilized in a way which gives a very warm, welcoming, cozy vibes to the customer, especially when it comes to coffee or especially when it comes to restaurant scenes. Secondly, for other cities, there are other factors also that come into the picture. For example, Bombay is home to a lot of celebrity culture. A lot of cricketers, a lot of celebrities stay over there. So every now and then a new celebrity would be getting into the restaurant business. For example, recently Shilpa Shetty, she opened a cafe called Blondie. So it is out and out dedicated to coffee and matcha. And it's bloody well doing. Yeah, it's doing really good.
It has anything to do with because Shilpa Shetty opened it and she is such a health freak.
That is also the case, and she has done amazingly well with the first concept of luxury dining, which is Bastion. So Bastion is also doing really good. So they have also opened in Bangalore. So because of the capital heavy nature of the business itself and because of the glamour it comes along with it, like if somebody is a celebrity, the top of the funnel, the discovery happens quite organically. Like Shilpa Shetty just had to post a couple of posts on Instagram to help everyone know that there is a cafe called Blondie which has opened in Bandra.
That's true.
So that becomes a lot easy. That's what I think. Talking about the concept, who has also done this similar to what I was talking about. Apart from Maverick and Farm, there is a cafe in Bombay named Stories. So they typically take bungalows, convert that into an art gallery cum co-working space, and where they also collab with cafes to serve coffee to their customers. So I think Subco has a shop and shop in one of the Story outlets.
Okay.
So they have they have a out and out art gallery cum co-working space, and they have outsourced the cafe to a different player, and both of them have kind of come together to give that kind of an experience.
Interesting. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have reached the end of it. So just if somebody wants to order for Puck Coffee, what all platforms they have to go to? Swiggy and Zomato.
So they simply have to go to Swiggy and Zomato, check if we are deliverable in that area, because we are relatively fresh. So we are delivering right now around in the southern part of Bangalore, part of Koramangala, part of Electronic City, part of Hulimabu, Jayanagar, JP Nagar, HSR. Those are the areas that we cater to. So you simply log on to Swiggy, Zomato and order from us. We are known typically for our gourmet blends of coffee. So like just to give you an idea, the flavors that sell the maximum are like bourbon whiskey, the one which you had, or Scotch Fee, which is a Scotch flavored coffee. Or for that matter, in cold brew we have Romano, which is a blend between orange, lime. So these are sparkling cold brews. So by the way, I think in Bangalore there is not a single cafe which is into sparkling cold brews. We are the first ones who have introduced that, and that is doing really well, luckily for us. And matcha is also something that we have ventured into newly. So our matcha flavors are also one of a kind. For example, pan infused matcha or salted pistachio kind of matcha.
Okay.
Or for cold brew also we have Indianized versions of cold brew. For example, a kokum cold brew or a tamarind cold brew. All these come with a lot of fizz as well. So it's sparkling cold brew, which is new in kind of concept.
Cool. So we wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And if you want, you can order from Puck Coffee.
Yes, please. Absolutely. It would be an absolute honor to serve anyone who is a coffee enthusiast or not a coffee enthusiast and just wants to introduce themselves to new kind of coffee through new flavors. We would be more than happy to accept suggestions and help you try our coffees.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rashmi.
Incredible talking
it was always
to
a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.